a nod. Here's a nod. I'd like to call to order the October 23rd, 2019 Sustainability Board meeting. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, thank you very much for joining us today. I'd like to acknowledge that Matt White is absent. Also, Mark is out for the afternoon. And we have a new person, Colleen. Is she the new alternate?
Welcome, Colleen.
Yeah, nice to see you, Colleen. Just like to take a moment. I think that Mark is out having fun, pre-scheduled arrangement or something. I'd like to just wish him well and hoping that he's having the best time. At this moment, I'll open the floor up for public comments. Each person has about 3 minutes to discuss whatever you'd like with us. Please state your name and your address or city where you're from. Full name. Oh, and another thing, if you'd like to say something, please come to the podium.
Rodney Smith, 265 South Robert Way, and I would like to invite you to the Hook Kids on Gardening program, November 16th, and so you want to come?
Of course we do. Rodney, where and what time?
Well,
November 16th, that's Saturday?
yeah, but, I think we want to change this. In fact, I've been talking to Edith, yeah, and I think 9 a.m. and to 11 a.m.
9 to 11.
And then we'll have raffles. Some of our sponsors are Decines and Healthy Human Health. No, Healthy Human.
Happy healthy. I think it's happy healthy.
Hey.
It's happy healthy.
Yeah, okay. And then,
Almost 1,000 tonight.
yeah, and then Ken Linderman donated a worm farm, and I don't know if I'll raffle it or auction it. Yeah. And then, you have any questions? I mean, and then it's at the Logos Community Garden.
On the worm farm.
Yes.
Any reason not to consider to use it to propagate and give out worms?
Well, so
Or find somebody that would like to do that?
perhaps, in fact, golly, what's your name? Well, so I've got a worm expert, okay? And she works at the Healthy Happy Human. Or I don't know. You know? And so I think she wants to come and do a program. But, you know, I've just started working on this. So, well,
The thing is, like, if you had a supply, you've got all your raised beds. Wouldn't it be good to put some worms in each of the, be able to do that?
Well, we've
During the
been
season.
discussing changing it up. There's no space for the lawnmowers. And and then they refuse to weed eat it.
We had a few work days, as mentioned, where we did some work with some of the community gardeners, and I did get approval to purchase a weed whacker for the garden itself. That can actually be out there
Yeah.
for us to use. And Rodney, you mentioned a mower.
Yeah, and this will be a good thing because, so the problem is the raised beds have red ants.
Right.
So, but hey, it's all good because we expected this. And it's good for our city to be so progressive. And I found it to be one of the most, in fact, the most progressive city in the east coast of Florida, And so we'll, with patience, we'll get these things solved,
Yep.
All right.
If you're getting weed whackers or mowers, they're
Well,
gonna
we-
be gas or electric?
Huh? Hey,
Thank you, John.
Thank you, John.
I will look
Bye-bye.
into that.
yeah,
Rodney,
All right.
always awesome.
yeah,
Before you,
yeah.
before you go, do we have a motion to send or designate a member to help him out on that specific day?
On the 16th, if I'm here,
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
All right,
Well, thank you, David.
so
Yeah.
we'll send Matt.
Oh, hey, and thank you,
Yeah,
Jennifer.
yeah.
Note of that.
that's 9 to 11. Right.
Possibly,
You got my number.
yeah. And, so, and I can use some help, John. I don't know.
Quick question, real quickly, is about the worm farmer. Is it actually just the plastic container with the farm itself, but not the worms? Because you have to order
Yes,
the
yes, yes.
So see, he has to order the worms.
Oh,
You have to
okay.
buy the worms. He's just saying you're going to get the container,
Right.
And then the,
then you order them.
But again, the idea was
farm?
to,
Funky Farm.
funky chicken farm.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Suzanne.
Yes.
Is the, man, she's special. And, so I would like to, order, or she's got, worms.
Okay.
Yeah. But we'll be talking about this.
All right,
All right.
sounds great.
Okay.
Hey, thank you so much.
Oh, I went over.
Get out of here. I was gonna give you the time you need. All right. Do we have any further public comment? Any further public comment? You're smiling like you have something? No? No? Okay. Okay, no? All right. Next order of business. Discuss, take action on a pilot compost project in conjunction with waste management.
A staff
Is that-
update?
So staff, oh, yeah, sorry, buddy.
We'll get to that.
Let's go, staff update.
Staff update,
If you
okay.
don't mind.
So, just to jump off of what Rodney was bringing up, I can make sure everyone gets a flyer. Has everyone seen the flyer for that event?
Seen it.
We can email that out to everybody, make sure everyone gets a copy of that. Okay, so work underway. First thing on the list, completed a Logos Community Garden Workday on October 19th. So falls really well in line with what Rodney was bringing up. And I'll make a note to send out that email with the flyer. Next, worked with the beautification board to begin a system to collect the cigarette butts in the new cigarette butt containers. They each volunteered, not all of them, some of the members of the beautification board have volunteered to actually clean up the butts, and we're going to start by just seeing how much they're used, getting some data, collecting data through the board, and each of the members that volunteered are going to keep track of that, and we're going to work to collect them and move them into TerraCycle so they can be sent off and recycled into benches or something. We continue to work with the Green Team, and I'd like to have Alexis come up and talk to us about the Green Team as part of that. Thank you, Alexis.
Hi, everybody. So for those of you who are not 100% on board what the Green Team is a group of people, all employees of the city from each department that are meant to enact the resolution of the City Council to phase out single-use plastic and expanded polystyrene materials, which we are much easier calling suplex materials. So we're going to suplex the city. Anyone? Yeah, okay. It's a wrestling move, if you didn't know. I thought it was funny, but that's okay.
What was it again?
Suplex. It's a wrestling move. You like,
Yeah.
I'm not even gonna.
WWF or WWE, which one?
It's WWE.
Oh, okay.
Not the World Wildlife Foundation, no. We're not gonna suplex any pandas, not today.
That's a
Anyway.
generational thing. to share, yeah.
So part of the Green Team's responsibility was to figure out a strategy and a set of plans to make phasing out suplex materials as seamless as possible in the city. Obviously, there's a little bit of a learning curve, a little bit of growing pains when it comes to getting rid of these really convenient and purposefully necessary items. But when there's suitable alternatives, whether it's a substitute or a feasible tweak in your process or in your system, we wanted to make sure that we figured out what those were. As a quick progress update, this was passed in July. We had 120 days or 6 months to come up with these strategies. Currently, we're at the point where we're altering the language of the initial resolution to make sure that we're reflecting the intentions of the City Council properly. So those intentions include no more city funding being spent on suplex materials, where feasible and where controllable. So where those kind of exceptions might lie are in packaging. So if we're ordering something, we're going to be as cost effective as we can when it comes to ordering things, whether it's office supplies, picking them up versus ordering them online, if they come in plastic packaging or not, and avoid those as much as possible. As well as with catering events, we find that special events are kind of a big producer of these single-use needed materials, because if you have 100 people show up to something, it's hard to do reusable silverware. Possible, but hard. So we wanted to make sure that we had feasible alternatives for all these different departments. Addressing packaging is a really big issue, not just for the city, but systemically. How do we make sure that if we order something that's from far away, that it gets here in quality condition and with as reduced plastic material as possible? So we're looking into kind of figuring out a list of approved vendors or approved items, some links on Amazon or with Office Depot, so that when our administrators are ordering supplies for the city that are part of our day-to-day operations, they know that if they click this link, it's going to come and it's going to fall properly under the resolution of the City Council. Addressing mission critical, or things that we've defined as mission critical suplex materials, so things like medical equipment, when you have sterilized medical equipment that comes wrapped in plastic, evidence bags for police, things that are kind of necessary to the public health and safety, so things that we really just kind of can't skimp on in terms of making sure that things are safe to use, whether it's for our firefighters and our other first responders or for the public use in general. And then also encouraging and educating and engaging employees in reducing their personal single-use plastic. One of the things that we didn't want to do is we didn't want employees to feel like we were raiding their pantries and saying that, it's shaking loose all of their suplex materials. We want to be able to encourage them and give them resources to phasing those things out of their lives in a way that makes sense for them, for their lifestyles. So those are kind of the main intentions of the resolution, and Nick has done a really good job of starting to really kind of make sure our language reflects that. As another update, we're having our lunch and learn tomorrow. This is where we're kind of giving a more broad update to our department heads. You all are welcome to join. I sent out an email. I got a kickback on a few of them, so I apologize if you didn't see the invite sooner. And we're doing that entirely suplex-free. So we want to be able to showcase and exemplify that this is a doable, feasible thing, and that we can, host something that's hospitable as well as educational without the use of suplex materials. Department heads, as I said, will be there, and we'll kind of be exploring what it means to be suplex-free and why we should be suplex-free. Nick invited Evan, what's his last name?
Greenmore from Orlando.
Evan from Orlando, who's part of their waste management department there. And Orlando has a similar resolution to phase out single-use plastic, and so he'll be coming and speaking about some of their journey, and we'll be giving an update about ours. And then, as I said, some of the outputs of the Green Team are going to include those items that, click a link, and that way it's not as much of a hassle for other departments to figure out what they can or can't purchase to stay with this resolution, as well as figuring out catering processes. Again, as I said, events tend to produce a lot of waste, special events at least. And if we can establish relationships with local vendors, especially small businesses, not only are we promoting sustainable economic practices, we're promoting those relationships between the city and those businesses, and then, being a little bit more mindful with our selection of materials when we host these types of events. That's pretty much all I had for the Green Team update at this time. Once we make our amendments and change our language, we'll be taking it back to council to make sure that it reflects all of the things that they wanted it to reflect. One or two council members may be present tomorrow. Not a ton of them could make it, which is understandable. They're pretty busy, kind of like we all are. And so that's kind of our next step.
When is the lunch and learn?
It's going to be from 12 to 1:15. The initial invite did say it's going to be in here, but we're moving it over to Scotty Culp Room.
This might be a spoiler, but as quickly as possible, do you have an example of the type of materials you're looking into that, let's say if you're not using like actual silverware, but things like, I don't know, plant, polymer, plastic substitutions? And part B, when you get materials that are not plastic, is this a recycling thing? Is there another part of that process that you guys have had to discuss, and, in terms of cardboard or, that kind of like just dealing with the whole process?
At this time, so part A is the substitutes. Right now, we're looking at working with Lions Club to actually, they switched to reusable silverware for their pancake breakfasts.
Okay.
Where they clean it and they wrap it nicely in a napkin, and then it looks really nice. So we're working on a partnership with them where they give that to us to borrow. We use it, we clean it, we wrap it up nicely, we give it back to them. That kind of alleviates our need to store it, as well as, we're kind of sharing resources there. Additionally, there's bamboo or like wood-based utensils for events that maybe we just don't have the capacity to wash a whole bunch of silverware for.
Right.
So that's an alternative. And then a lot of it, right now we really actually, there's a lot of rabbit holes that we can fall down with this issue.
Yeah.
There's kind of any number of hoops that you can jump through to figure out what the next step is. And so Nick and I had to work pretty tirelessly when we were coming up with these initiatives and these strategies with the Green Team to stay on track. So we're not necessarily looking at recycling as a process at this time, simply because the resolution only addresses single-use plastic. So our strategy here was, we don't want to worry about recycling plastic because we just don't even want to worry about having plastic. So reducing the need to recycle at all, and just having something that is organically or inherently able to be looped back into the system naturally. So whether it's compostable or is washable and reusable, so it never really enters that waste stream in the first place.
Right.
So our concern was just kind of alleviating that stress on the waste stream in general.
Right. That's step one. Yeah, because I've been very curious about like plant-based, biopolymer. It looks like plastic, but it's plant-based, and it takes about 3 to 6 months to compost, but you need an industrial facility.
Yeah.
So that's a rabbit hole, obviously.
Yep.
But just curious about that, and if that's
And we're avoiding those.
Yeah.
That was something a lot of people said, oh, bioplastics, we'll just do that instead.
Right,
and because we don't have access to an industrial
Exactly.
composter, we did not consider that a viable solution.
right.
But if Waste Management is interested in working with the city on things, that may be something to, and maybe from more than one city, to suggest that maybe they want to, I don't know, I think that Orlando,
They have one.
is it? So the point is, maybe there's some way to cooperate with Orlando or something.
And when that happens, we'll address it. But until then, as Alexis said,
Yeah.
we're just going to.
Yeah, you've got to go one step at a time. And another step is a wooden fork, or let's say a rice-based fork from Taiwan that's been shipped halfway around the world, more or less green than the plastic fork that was made in St. Augustine. You know, so there's, you know, as you get into this stuff, there's all kinds of trade-offs, and so,
Which again is the borrowing of the Lions Club silverware fixes that issue.
yeah, that's, and another thought was whether, when you kind of, I'll say, get your act together and have a list of things or something, is approach the local businesses, not necessarily just in the city, and say, you know, we're making a list of vendors, whether it's restaurants or whatever else, that we'd like that if, you know, you wanted, in other words,
We do
you
plan.
recently had a board's meeting, a board members luncheon, and to give preference to those businesses that met certain criteria,
Yeah, that's,
kind of like what we're doing with Long Dog,
that's,
or not Long Dog, Doubles.
that is part of our process, is we want to create those partnerships with the local businesses and understand what they're able to do at this time and what they're not able to do, and then give them support to increase their capacity for more sustainable materials and alternatives.
All right. Yeah, I just want to thank you for the update.
You're welcome.
But also, I just wanted to know, is there any action items that you thought we could help you with as on the board? Are there any things you need looked up, or?
If you frequent local businesses and they don't have, and they have suplex materials, so things like plastic utensils or styrofoam containers or plastic bags, I suggest that you start a conversation with them as a customer, and just ask, and just say, hey, if I brought my own container, would that be all right? Or, hey, have you seen the containers that such and such has? Or hey, I saw these really cool turtle-friendly containers, you know, online. Is that something that you'd be interested in? I think starting that conversation. I know there's some businesses around here who currently use suplex materials and are looking to move towards more sustainable materials. They are going to see an increase in some of their prices to afford those, but they understand that it's a more ethical and responsible thing to do. So for now, maybe just start those conversations.
Do you have any information, like an information packet ready on that specific topic, or?
I can take that one. In the audience today, we have Keep Far Beautiful, and their litter picker program is a great example of how to
Address it.
facilitate that conversation.
Okay.
I have pamphlets in my office that they've given us to distribute that I can make sure that everyone has copies of, so that whenever you do go to a restaurant, you can have that with you.
Perfect.
How's that been going in the city? Do you have anybody signed up?
Since we have Keep Far Beautiful here, I'd like to have them answer that more directly.
Okay.
Right now, it is moving in Satellite Beach. Nick's been a really great help with that. We've got, I think, just in Satellite, 7 or 8 businesses as litter quitters, and they could be anywhere from bronze to gold level in the program. So that's, bronze level is about straws, so we're starting small, and then gold level is the hardest, which is switching your styrofoam. So that's the most expensive for
And do they get a sticker that goes on the window or door or whatever?
Sticker on the window, they get posters, table tents, any promotional items that they request from us. We give to them. They also get it promoted on all of our social media, our website. We also have connections with all of the chambers for most of the cities, and they post our litter critters on there as well.
Okay.
I do believe there will be an app also very soon.
We are rolling out a KDP app soon, so that will also be on there.
All right, we can't wait for your presentation. Can't wait, that's why I'm here. All right. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Leslie.
You're welcome.
Perfect. So,
So I would like to make a comment.
Please come.
Ronnie, if you would like to.
You could, please.
The podium.
3 minutes. Time's already starting.
At Sunrise, the cigarette butt disposable is not in a good place.
Kay, do you have a preferred location?
Right there. I mean, where people are smoking,
I don't smoke, so I don't know.
Well, okay,
Ronnie, you're talking about on the boardwalk itself
Yeah.
instead of down on the parking lot?
yeah,
I saw that too. I
Yeah.
think that they should be on the boardwalk and not in the parking lot.
Strong.
yeah, I mean, it's,
Sure. We still have more. We can put up another one.
yeah, all right, thank you.
Thank
Awesome,
you.
thank you.
Yeah. I'll bring it up at the
10 seconds left.
So you're going to bring that up at your next?
beautification board meeting?
Perfect.
Yeah, I'll bring it up there. Perfect. Thank you. Thank you. So following with the current work underway, just to try to get quickly, went ahead and communicated with the Department of Environmental Protection for permitting for the Sizzler, the Sampson's Island restoration for submerged lands project. It's going well. I'll give you a continuous update as that goes on. Next part of that, we did get the contract approved through council recently, so that's really great. It's going to move on to the next phase of that, which will be partners meeting and actually going onto the island. And if there's any board members that would like to be involved with that, just please let me know, and I'll invite you to that boat ride when that happens. Additionally, worked with Public Works as part of the NEP National Estuary Program funded DeSoto Stormwater Enhancement Project, where volunteers planted along the DeSoto corridor. We planted on September 28th from 9 a.m. until 12 p.m. That makes sense? Is that right? Yeah, that's right. Okay, and we had about 5 volunteers come out. Jennifer was there. I want to thank Jennifer for showing up and bringing her son. We had good turnout considering it was the area is about 700 square feet. Public Works helped put the rock in place, and we're going to continue to do more of those as the weather gets a little bit cooler, and Public Works is going to help prep the next areas. There was some construction going on in DeSoto, so we kind of postponed some of that and just kind of focused on that small area.
And thanks to your mom for the cookies.
Yes, my property.
When it's that hot, it does really help.
We continued with our workshops as well. Workshop number 19, Climate Change 101, actually it was workshop number 20, was held Thursday, September 26th at 7 p.m. And there was about 5 people that showed up. Yeah, they are the same kind of crew, and that'll kind of lead into one of the agenda items that we're going to talk about workshops specifically in a little bit, so I'll leave that one. Also, on another note, I was appointed to the Brevard Marine Advisory Council for the county, and I got to attend my first meeting. Thank you. I get to attend my first meeting with them, and made a motion, and the motion was approved, and the motion was to allow for emergency removal of derelict boat vessels that are directly impeding a piece of infrastructure because of the one on O'Galley that was leaning on a gas line, and I think it also cut a fiber optic cable, and it took them 21 days to remove it. So we wanted to expedite the process because there was no mechanism to allow that. So that was kind of fun, and I look forward to the next meeting, and I'll make sure that I continuously update you on anything that's Brevard Marine Advisory Council related, BMAC for short. Moving on to one that's really important to me is the Living Shorelines Homeowner Incentive Pilot Program. At this time, we don't have anyone that's actually part of the program, and I'm going to continue to advertise this at events. And any help that we can have trying to get residents to do this again. I did a workshop on this. We've been talking about it at events and here at the sustainability board meetings. But it's the small plant grant for lagoon front homeowners and serves as part of the city's match for the NEP National Estuary Program grant partnership between the city and FIT, Florida Institute of Technology. So as part of this program, residents can get a minimum of $100 and a maximum of $500 in matching funds to create either a living shoreline or bioswales to reduce the impacts of stormwater on a lagoon. This can be done in their backyard or side yard, depending on how their yard is actually facing the lagoon. They can be used to purchase plants, related materials, coquina rock and things of that nature for retaining those plants and reducing the impacts of stormwater. We do have 2 residents that actually came in the day after I wrote this, must have put it out in the universe, from the fountains. And they came in and they're interested in being some of the first to do this. One of the homeowners has about 300 feet that she could do. So we would be able to cover a small portion of that. And just getting one of these done would be really great to kind of serve as an example. So I'll keep you up to date on that, and I'll let you know how that evolves. But as board members, if possible, to communicate this to anyone that you know that lives on the lagoon and share the flyer that I posted previously. I can reshare that with you so that you can have the flyer to post and to share. That'd be really, really great.
Isn't there, the oyster folks connected to the zoo, they do something similar, right? And I thought,
They do.
Yeah.
So part of the oyster program, they did one on cinnamon,
yeah.
which I helped out with a little bit, and they did 6 feet off of the seawall and 3 feet up. They did
Okay.
2 oyster bags wide and 2 oyster bags tall.
Yeah.
So far, so good on the
Yeah.
project, but it's not a living shoreline as much as it's an addition on the exterior of the seawall.
Okay.
Those 2 projects could work together. There's no reason that they couldn't.
I'm just wondering about like, I guess I'm surprised that more people weren't signed up or, like, we know people who live on, now we're going to guilt them and pressure them, yeah. But no, I'm just kidding. But
I think it's just
Yeah.
being first is difficult for people
Yeah,
sometimes.
yeah.
So I think once we get that first one, it'll start snowballing.
okay,
And if you know anybody,
yeah,
beat me to it. I got 2 on the hook, so,
I think so. Yeah,
okay. We could talk more about that.
yeah.
Just moving quickly on to public events and meetings. October 20th, from 12 a.m. to 4 p.m., there was the Brevard Library Con, which was a lot of fun. I saw you 2 there.
That was awesome. That was, I have to say, that was incredible for people who follow Comic-Cons, to have like an epic Comic-Con in our backyard. They did an amazing job as Comic-Cons go, and with like, just like bags of like giveaways and the diversity of costume and the music and the jousting, and I mean, it's insane to have all that at the library. We were like blown away by what they did, what the whole library crew pulled off. And Darth Vader, stayed in full black costume, like head to toe, dark,
Wow.
layered,
Was very hot.
black clothing. And I kept saying, are you all right in there?
I had a heat headache for like 6 hours after that.
Yeah.
But, I did the costume contest, and I got to judge that, and
Yeah.
one of our own Satellite Beach residents, Levi,
Levi,
was the winner for
Yeah.
his age group.
yeah.
Who was he?
He was a Dragon Ball Z character, Goku. I believe.
Goku. I didn't even know what it was.
He
Yeah.
did, good job. So it was a lot of fun, and,
Just quick, how'd your son do in that? I know he made some little,
He didn't enter, so the contest was kind of like really self-made, and his costume was, he was also Darth Vader.
but I thought he
So-
made little figurines or something.
Oh, yeah, you're right. He has a side business where he sells Star Wars finger puppets anyway. He tried not to shake people down at that event. But yeah, but he did tell them about it, yeah. But he was also mini Darth.
Too bad I wasn't.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for mentioning how great it was. It was a lot
Yeah.
of fun, and
It's awesome.
happy to support that in the future for the next one. The Brevard Sustainability Working Group held its meeting on October 28th at the UF, University of Florida Institute of Food and Agricultural Sciences Building, IFAS, at 3695 Lake Drive in Cocoa. And we've been working with them, the Brevard Sustainability Working Group, who, as sustainability board members, have hopefully gotten the invite to which is now, it's changed, it's a renewable energy workshop for city officials and sustainability boards, specifically geared towards individuals like yourselves, so please attend if possible. Again, that's November 8th, 2019, 9 a.m. to noon. You should have this in your email previously from me. That takes care of public events and meetings, and then just quickly future topics and special presentations tomorrow night, October 24th, 7 p.m. here in Council Chambers. I'll do the workshop 21, invasive species removal, and discuss the impacts of invasive species, as well as how to identify and remove them. We did one like this about a year ago, and it was pretty well attended, actually. About 8 or 9 people showed up. And again, we'll talk more about workshops when we move to workshops as an agenda item. So the Brevard Sustainability Working Group will have another meeting, as it always does, but they're also, again, hosting the workshop. So the next meeting is November 25th at 12 p.m. at UF IFAS at 3695 Lake Drive in Cocoa. And again, that's the Brevard Sustainability Working Group meeting. It happens every month.
That's the next one, the next one's on Monday, right?
Right, November 25th.
Well, October 28th
October
at
28th,
noon.
and then November 25th. They're
Okay.
They're going to have the workshop in between those two.
Okay. I was going to try to go on Monday, just for a little bit of time.
Great, yeah, no, it's fantastic. And you'll get to probably hear a little bit more about that workshop.
Yeah.
Other than that, I figured we're going to talk about events and things like that later, but there's also Founder's Day, and the one that's important for me is the Solar Expo here at City Hall. So again, for those of you who haven't heard, Sally Beach is going to have a Solar Expo. And I really hope that John and Dave, you can participate specifically as solar homeowners to communicate to residents what it's like having solar, how you went about getting that. That's going to be November 23rd, 2019, 9 a.m. to 2 p.m., right here, 565 Cassia, to learn about solar technologies and solar funding opportunities. I've talked to PACE providers, PACE financing, self-providers, some different solar entities, and I kind of wanted some board input on who else we should invite to the event as far as for solar. So if there's any thoughts during the evening that you have that you want to kind of come back and mention that, please feel free. And with that, I will go ahead and pass it on so we can get on to our agenda items.
And that's also one of our agenda items too, so we're going to readdress that and hopefully talk about that a little bit more.
Yep. Oh, we'll go over on the agenda item. That's the 23rd of November.
All right. I have one quick question about the green team. After, how are we gauging what is 100% on that green team thing? Because it's one of our GATs.
Right.
Number 12. So I see we're at technically 33%. After she finishes that project, what are we proposing?
Let's look at that. So number 12, straws and green team. Yeah, I think we're going to get there with the green team, hopefully, to kind of pave the way. So if Alexis, you want to speak on that a little bit more?
I don't have that GAT in front of me right now. Do you have the actual language of it?
I don't. I was just bringing it up for conversation. I was
Yeah.
trying to get it myself.
What I can do is I can take a look at the specific language of it, and then once we have the outputs of the green team, we can figure out like what that means in terms of percent complete.
Okay.
Before we say that it's 100% or not, just so I can understand, because I just, off the top of my head, I just don't remember what the exact language is, and I can give you an update on that.
Well, thanks. It's just a question.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay. Making it.
All right. Any further public comment? No? Okay.
Actually, you know, that raises a question. Maybe it wouldn't be a bad idea at some point to have a discussion on what constitutes 100% or completion of each one of those GATs. At least then, I mean, at this point, I guess in theory, until you're not using any plastic, you haven't met the GAT. But that, I'm sure, is not realizable in our lifetimes. So we ought to probably identify some specific, at this point, we'll declare it done.
Okay. Well, we'll look at the language over the month, right? And see what constitutes a completion.
Okay. I'll just, recommend to staff that it's a living document, as we've said many times,
Right.
and that there are different ways to achieve a lot of these green achievement targets from many angles, and there may be a version of it in the future that we can always come back to.
Perfect. All right. Any further public comment? All right. Moving on to the next order of business. Discuss, take action, a pilot, a compost project in conjunction with Waste Management. We've got a guest here.
Okay, so I would like to introduce Kaylin from Keep Brevard Beautiful. We did meet with Waste Management. However, after that meeting, there was a few things that happened. One of them was a desire to get some more data. And with that, Keep Brevard Beautiful has done some great things in this realm, and we can kind of start with that conversation and then move forward.
Thank you. Hi, everybody. My name is Kaylin Palmer. I'm the Environmental Programs Coordinator at Keep Brevard Beautiful, and I am in charge of the new pilot composting program that we're starting up. Right now, we're just waiting on the funds to come in. We actually got a Think Green grant from Waste Management to buy these composting bins, so we're going to be ordering 30 composting bins. Those will be coming in hopefully next month. We're just waiting on the funds to come in, and then we'll order those.
So the whole thing with this is our ultimate goal is to kind of have something to relate to the current Orlando composting program, because they have successfully completed a composting program over there where they actually have pickup of compost from residential homes. So we would love to see that move over here to Brevard. The only issue is we don't have any data to back up that this would be successful here. So that is why we started to do this composting pilot. So basically, this is going to show the county and the cities that this is something that has interest in Brevard County, will be successful in Brevard County, and then we'll have data from the composting pilot to show that it was successful and that people were interested in doing it correctly. And we want to make sure, we also want to gauge current knowledge on composting, because there are people that know, there are people that don't know. So the pilot, right now, because it's a pilot, we're limiting it to just our Lagoon Friendly Lawn homeowners, which is a program we have at Keep Brevard Beautiful that I also coordinate. So we're limiting it to 30 people from that program. We're randomly selecting members that have put their names into the hat, so to say. Those people receive the composting bins. This is going to be a year-long study. So they will receive their bin along with educational material that we have written up. It's currently, that verbiage is still being approved by my executive director, but as soon as that is, I will definitely send that over to Nick. But yeah, so they're going to receive their bins, educational literature, and then they'll also receive the program guidelines. We just want to make sure that they're going to be submitting their reports on time, things like that. They will be required to submit quarterly reports to us. In these reports, they're going to have to answer questions such as, what have you been composting? And then we're also going to have a pre-survey and post-survey. So the pre-survey is to gauge what current knowledge they have on composting, as well as how much they throw away right now in their homes. Because at the end of the project, we want to make sure that, okay, that number was cut down. We want to see how much garbage was actually being diverted from the landfill by composting. So we're going to have that pre-survey, post-survey, and then the quarterly reports just to make sure they're still on track. I will also be used as kind of a help if they don't know what they're doing, or if they have any questions. So as this goes along, we'll have those 30 people constantly sending reports to make sure that they're staying up to date, making sure they're doing it correctly. And we also created in that packet that they're going to be getting with their compost bin, we're going to have the program guidelines. They'll obviously get their bin, and then they're going to have a tips and tricks page, which will help them with composting things. We'll also have a common mistakes page that they can look up. Okay, you know, why does my compost bin smell this way? Why is it turning this color? That way they can reference that to hopefully give them better direction. So our ultimate goal is to have this data at the end to bring to the county and say, look, people want this, it's going to be successful, here's the data to prove that it was successful for a year. And then hopefully have something to resemble the Orlando composting program, because what they're doing over there is amazing. We actually had them come out to the Titusville Environmental Commission a couple months ago, and I attended that, and I forgot his name now, but he came out and actually spoke from Greenworks about their program, and everybody was just amazed at what they're doing over there. So we would love to have that. It's just kind of getting the county and waste management on board with something like this. They're going to need to have hard data that this is something that's, you know, worth investing in. So that's what the composting pilot is all about.
Can you say again, where did the sample come from? So the larger group that you're randomly picking 30 people from, where did that come from again?
So that's our Lagoon Friendly Lawn homeowners. So
Okay.
we have our Lagoon Friendly Lawn program at KBB, which encourages homeowners to reduce fertilizers,
Right.
pesticides. They encourage planting native. So that program is all about that. So we figured these people are already in that mindset.
Right.
Most of them already have some knowledge. There are some that don't.
Right.
So we I sent out an email saying, hey, we're gonna do this.
Yeah.
If you're interested, submit your name, and we're gonna randomly pick 30 people from that.
Right.
So just
Yeah.
for the pilot, we're wanting to keep it small.
Yeah, and you got some motivation from early adopters, and then but they'll tell you if it's feasible.
Exactly.
Or what didn't work. kind of
Exactly.
thing.
So, and that's where that post survey comes into play too.
Right.
Not only will it show us how much knowledge they gained in the program, which hopefully it'll gain a lot of knowledge, but it'll also show us how much garbage was diverted from the landfill. So getting into that, it was really hard to create these pre-surveys and post-surveys that I did. So you have to really get into, okay, how am I going to get this data from these people? So you have to ask, you know, how much how many times do you put your garbage out by the road? How full is it when you put it out by the road? So they're gonna have to answer things like this, and then answer it again at the end
Yeah.
to see if there's that change.
Types of thing in the garbage.
Yes.
Did you know that you could recycle or you could compost?
Yep, and then we also threw in recycling questions in there too, to see, okay, are they recycling? Because that's gonna make a change too in what they're throwing away. And we also threw in, along with the composting, we threw in a garbage disposal question. Because if they have a garbage disposal, they may be putting those things down in the garbage disposal. That's gonna be a thing where when we give these people these composting bins, they're gonna be coming to a workshop, it's gonna be hosted at the KBB office. So we're gonna go over things like, okay, if you're in our composting program, make sure not to use your garbage disposal, because these are things that could be composted, and that's gonna kind of skew our data.
Right.
So we have to kind of go over these things with them, and they're gonna sign, and me and Nick are gonna work on a pledge for them to
Pledges
do.
work.
Yes,
There's data on that.
yes.
Yeah.
So they're going to sign, and they also have to sign to make sure that, you know, during the program, they're going to follow our program guidelines and everything to make sure our data is accurate. And then KDB also is going to retain ownership of those bins throughout the entire
And
program.
they're standard tumbling bins, like.
Yes, yeah, they're standard rotating bins.
Yep, yep.
So, yeah, I think the ones I found were 70-something apiece.
Okay.
So they're the nice ones.
Yeah.
There's
Yes.
no cost to the customer for this?
No,
at all?
nope, not at all.
That's so cool.
Yes.
I
I'm
love
excited.
compost. Yeah.
I know that's right up your alley.
Right up my alley.
I'm very excited.
Super. Yeah, I know.
But when I sent out the email for interest in the Lagoon Friendly Lawn pool that we chose from, we had over 100 people say,
Yeah.
yes, I want to do this. We have yet to choose the 30 people because we want to wait till these bins come in. We don't want to say, oh, yeah, you know, like, it'll be this, because we have to set that workshop date too. So we're waiting until we set that workshop date and get those bins in, and then we'll pick our 30 random participants. So,
Awesome.
Is it too late to volunteer to put your name in?
Right.
no,
Okay, I was just wondering.
you didn't get my email.
Well, I'm sure I did. Unfortunately.
Fortunately, you're
I
in
didn't
the
see
Lagoon
it.
Friendly Lawn program, so you could
Yeah, I
definitely
love
put
that.
your name in.
Okay, I'll send my vote in.
Yes, do that, awesome.
Thank you.
Do you have to have a lagoon friendly lawn? We're working on it. We bought a bad one.
Yeah, as of right now, we're keeping it in the.
Yeah.
Yeah, just to make sure it's consistent and
Yeah.
kind of keep our pool small right now since we can only order 30 bins. We do have other grants out right now that we're waiting to hear back on, whether we were granted them or not. And if we do get those, we will be ordering more composting bins to kind of expand our testing for this program. So we're just waiting on answers from that back.
Very cool. All right. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
I'll go ahead and jump off of that. Thank you, Caitlin. It's wonderful. So the recommended action for this agenda item is to host a composting workshop with Keep Our Beautiful, to kind of piggyback off of that idea and create something here locally. I'll make the recommendation to do it on December 14th. That seems to be a date that is available. We can do it at the community garden. Again, recommend that as a location. We do have 10 compost bins that we did get from Orlando, or the same Orlando Greenworks program. So we have some available, and those are the ones that we brought out at the community garden fair and the Earth Day celebration at the DRS Center, where people expressed interest to the beautification board about a composting program. And all this will work together to create the data so that eventually we can achieve that goal of piloting the compost project. So the workshop would be a great first start at that, and then we can kind of build off of that. And maybe other local nonprofits can join in on composting as that develops. So I just make the recommended action of hosting a composting workshop with Keep Our Beautiful.
Do we have a motion?
I motion that we host a workshop with Keep Up Our Beautiful, what he said. Yeah.
And I second.
Yeah.
John Fergus,
Yes.
Stephen Gillum,
Yes.
Jennifer Schroeder,
Yes.
David Leotti,
Yes.
Chris Reed,
Yes.
motion carries.
Jennifer Schroeder has taken on compost with Nick in the past. Thank you very much for that. Would you like to continue helping him directly with this?
Yeah, we've had a conversation actually and have some ideas on what that might look like. My husband also, I think, together, we're compost fanatics. It's a thing, yeah. So that'd be great. And we talked a little bit about ideas on digging in and all the policy implications, but also how do you do it, and newbies to people who have been doing it a while. Yeah, yeah.
So you're the,
Oh, yeah, yeah.
awesome.
Yep, trivia question. Does anyone know what vermipost is? Do you know that you can compost anything just about, but it just, yeah. Yes. 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 Meat is also compostable, but not in the typical way. It's like a whole different thing, yeah.
So that goes directly towards our GAT number 11. That'll be great. Absolutely wonderful.
All right. Thank you, board.
All right, any further public comment? All right, no? All right, let's look at the next order of business. Discuss, take action on planning and scheduling free workshops. This has to do with our Green Achievement number 7.
All right. Thank you again, board. If you look in your packet, you'll find that attached is a list of all the workshops, all the previous workshop topics. So the idea for this recommended action is to discuss different ways to implement Green Achievement Target number 7 and schedule free public workshops that educate and explore topics such as community gardening in the Inver Lagoon, climate change, and sustainable transportation. So since the implementation, we've actually had a total of 20 workshops, and again, they're held monthly. They're advertised on Go Green SB on our Facebook page. Every workshop begins at 8 p.m. and ends no later than 9. So, wait, 8? 7 p.m. and ends no later than 9. Some of them, we've had different people come out and talk to us, different local professionals like Linda Seals and Sally Sclera from UF have talked about landscaping and Florida-friendly, KBB talks about Florida-friendly yards, UF talks about My Brevard Yard, and a number of other different workshops with people talking about sea turtles as well. Nicole Perna from Berry Island Center. And attendances vary from anywhere from 0 at times when it's pouring rain and no one shows up to 25 people. In the beginning, Dylan and Balance for Earth was video recording them, and now that we have the new setup, we'll just continue to do that and make them available for people upon request. On average, about 6 people have attended each workshop, typical attendance, and they've traveled as far as Palm Bay, Rockledge to get here. So there is a bit of awareness if people are looking for it, it seems. But I would request that the board discuss the topics that we're covering, the frequency to which they're covered, the content and duration, as well as location and the types of speakers in order to determine the future direction to make sure that these are being well attended and that they are something that we can all use to our advantage. And if you want to reduce the frequency to increase attendance, to increase the viability of the workshops by adding speakers to increase attendance, these are just some possible options on how to get there. So I'll leave it up to the board.
Which workshops had the best attendance?
Recycling had the best attendance with 25 people. That was recycling and sustainable products. That was actually one of the best ones. About 25 people showed up.
Okay, what would be number 2?
Number 2, the community gardening. One we had to postpone. Lawn maintenance and stormwater. It's native. I'd probably say it was dark skies and sea turtle nesting. People came out for the sea turtles. We had Nicole Perna come out for our guest speaker. I was the speaker for the recycling talk. That one had about 12 people for the sea turtles and dark skies.
I wonder if we could think about like a couple targeted outcomes, because clearly education and awareness is an outcome, an intended outcome. But in terms of like, cross-leveraging different GATs, for a topic. So we could list out, there's a lot of interesting things I think that we could all learn more about for sure. But in terms of like what we're expecting out of these, it's obviously increasing awareness for the participants, but do we have an ask of every participant? Are we hoping that we can get information from participants about what they're doing now? I mean, similar to what KBB was talking about with what are you doing now, what do you know, so that we can get information. And also things like recycling might even leverage with composting. Just thinking about how those GATs go together. Those are just things I'm thinking of that would help, I think, for us all to be really targeting marketing, but also sort of actively getting people involved in other things, not just education and awareness, but actively saying, okay, we've got you here, we're going to get some input from you. Here's our ask for you. Here's how these things relate. The main topic is this. And then maybe it would be less frequent and kind of put the effort into like more of a layered kind of event. And it might help rather than I think I mean, I love going to things like this, but like just more passive education is fine, but maybe we could sort of level up to more of an active.
Can you define that ask? Is it?
Yeah, like an ask.
Frame me a question.
Well, like Lexi was saying, so if you're out in businesses, here's our ask of you to start that conversation. So that's an example of an ask. So if we have folks coming in for compost, we want to get information from you about what you understand about it, like KBB's talking about what you're doing. We have an ask for you to try composting. Just thinking about that is, things like my husband and I are like, DWJC, don't worry, just compost. It's like, so we're empowering people to do something, and we're asking them, because when you do a pledge, I'm a researcher, pledges and just signing some piece of paper that's not legally binding, but saying that gets people to do things. So if we have an ask of them, what would be great is if you could compost for 10 days and tell us what happened. Just ask, just define it and go out in the world and say, talk to one of your neighbors, let us know what you found out. I don't know.
Another thing is like the Solar Expo. If you do something that's associated, in other words, if you had a workshop in conjunction with that, you've already collected a whole bunch of people, and if at 10 o'clock, you've got, just like they do at the Ocean Reef Beach, you've got the clubhouse, and they've got a whole series of things going, during the solar thing, have some kind of a presentation on solar. I don't know quite what one thing might be to have somebody come from the group that's doing the group buys.
Right, so they'll be here. The solar co-op will be at the event.
Okay.
And
the point would be if they conducted a workshop and said, here's what it is, we've had I think it wasn't a few months ago, they said they'd done their 100th co-op in the state, I think.
So if I may to kind of answer that, the concept with the expo is that each vendor will be highlighted for about 5 minutes.
Yeah.
So during the event, they'll get the opportunity to speak through a microphone to the public specifically about their booth, and then take a break and then switch to the next one, so that everyone gets a chance to kind of have their own mini workshop without having, because if you do the workshop in the middle of it, then you take away from the other vendors that are there. And we wanted to allow for all the vendors to kind of, be specifically.
Well, I was trying to pick something that, because there isn't an active co-op right now in the county.
Correct.
So that if they had a workshop on the co-ops, and you did it at a time when you're not having other people do their 5-minute spiel, it would seem to me, and I'm just using that as an example. Another one is the Ocean Reef Beach. Have a workshop on something there. In other words, you've already got, another ideal would have been Founder's Day. It's a little bit late on that one, but again, if you've got an event or something going on that's going to attract people, and you do something that kind of ties in with it, then I think your attendance will improve dramatically.
All right. That's awesome. Well, board, do we have a motion to direct staff on planning and scheduling free public workshops? This will help us in achieving GAT number 7. Do we have a motion to aid Nick in that? Of course, of course.
Do we need a motion?
Do we need a
We've
motion?
already been doing that.
All
We've
right.
been doing this
Okay.
forever,
All
haven't we?
right.
If you want to make any changes to it, was the
Well,
idea.
yeah, that's-
Change the frequency or change the topic.
We got to somehow get it to the school system. I mean, is there some way we could get young kids that are our future, that whether we lock them into, if they have after-school programs, that they're already there, something like that.
Sorry if I didn't mean to- Are there any science teachers that maybe can give out like extra credit for going to one of these workshops, or that
Or-
might interest them? I
Or
don't know.
something, I mean,
Look into it.
elementary school, there's Green Day, I mean, we have Earth Day once a year, that might be the time that we could talk to an elementary school and try to do some workshops with them. We've got a captured audience and,
Yeah, when you, when you go in the school, do you talk to a class, or do you talk to a group?
we have a
Depends.
couple.
It's the stormwater presentations. I talk to the classes and I'll stay in the classroom all day and I'll talk to the different series of students that come in for each of those classes about that topic. And it's typically stormwater and stormwater related for stormwater impacts, how to reduce stormwater, how to identify, anything that might impede or contribute to the degradation of the lagoon through stormwater. So there's stormwater talks, right? Then there's the sustainability board that the Satellite High School has. That might be a good mechanism for doing something like that. But I think for this green achievement target, it was mostly focused on, if we're doing it for the public, do we want to do them here at this location continuously? Should we make them less frequent and have a pledge or a survey? Because we did a survey originally as part of a grant through DEP.
Right.
And everyone that came in was filling out the survey, but we completed that grant.
Well,
So we
and
can kind of build off of that.
Yeah, and it sounds like we're trying to figure out how we define what we want out of this. And so clearly raising awareness, but I don't think we have a good sense of like how many people we're shooting for. We're talking about increasing frequency. You could do that through engaging the schools. But I feel like for the purposes of this, like our helping to support all green achievement targets, sort of that cross-purpose, like John said, tying it with something else. Are we clear on what we're asking people? And also when we market, Facebook, flyers, things like that, and we're trying to really get people involved, I would almost define involvement as an outcome, as a goal for these workshops, not just awareness or education, but involvement, like greater involvement in whatever's happening in the city, which could come from an ask.
Impact.
Yeah, impact involvement, yeah.
And the thing is, I would see talking to even just one classroom with 30 students counts a whole lot more than having something here that has 5 adults sitting there. The impact, I think,
What about
in the long term.
public schools that have, that they're required to get, volunteer hours? It's part of their volunteer hours is actually listening to you talk about sustainability practices. I mean, if we could, that's volunteering. I mean, they're learning about educating, being more green and more sustainable. Is that volunteering? Well, kind of. I mean.
Yeah, and could we gauge like what they do then? Like what's their intention?
Yeah,
How do
then they
feel?
could, like you said, they could make an achievement to talk to other people. That's they're getting this talk to other people about about composting.
Right.
Maybe their family, maybe they take that home and compost at home.
Right.
That's their volunteer hours is too.
Becoming a steward.
What is it?
A steward.
Yeah, you're a steward to the environment. You're maybe,
I like the idea of having some sort of an ask, because then if it's, hey, do you, talk to 10 people about this or something like that, because then people are leaving the workshops, they're thinking about it, and then hopefully what you're going to see is them spreading word, more interest, and therefore better education to the general public about these things.
Right.
So, I mean, yeah, if you ask everyone to talk to 10 people, are they all going to talk to 10 people? Probably not.
Yeah.
But if they all talk to one person, that's something.
right.
But I like the idea of taking it to the schools. I think that's beneficial. But, I mean, the kids that are in schools right now are going to grow up and do a lot of this stuff anyway. So if we're going to go talk to the kids,
Are they?
then our ask should be, get 3 adults that you know to start doing that thing
Yeah.
we learned about today.
Yeah.
Because we can't forget to educate the adults in the community because they need it a lot more than the kids do.
So, Nick,
And you get volunteer hours for doing it.
We'll look into that.
is it, are you, Nick, are you asking about maybe a change in frequency? Like maybe doing it quarterly now, or?
Yes,
Less.
I'm asking for recommendations from the board to adjust the existing workshops, which are monthly,
Roughly now.
Right.
to see if you want less frequency, if you want more, a variety of speakers, and if there are topics. Again, we can come back to this. This doesn't have to,
I think we need to come back with it. I mean, I think we should increase it, but when I say we can increase it, I mean you increase it.
I
mean,
I will say
Well-
right now that the monthly
Yeah.
might not be getting the traction because there's not big speaker names. And I think that the workshop with Keep Brevard Beautiful is a good example of it, will be a workshop, right? And maybe having that be a yearly thing, right, is a scheduled workshop, so that would also fit into that.
Well,
And
there's
that would be a
nothing-
topic that then has and then if there's a
Keynote
solar
speaker.
topic.
Yeah, there's nothing that says it has to be you. I guess maybe the idea is, if instead of you doing the presentations, if you facilitate the proper people coming in and even into the schools, but that's probably not going to be as realistic. That's probably something that you'd wind up having to do in the schools. But, you know, instead of you're spending the time preparing to come here and talk to 5 people, if you took all that time plus the time you did the presentation and devoted that time to setting something up where somebody from the Solar Energy Center went someplace and did something, and, you know, that the council found that they get more attention and interaction when they took their discussions out of the city buildings. So the schools is one option. There aren't a whole lot, but,
That's also a great idea.
you know, I guess I would count doing something in the clubhouse as part of Ocean Reef Beach. That's not the same as a meeting here.
Are you also asking us to be more involved in those workshops? I mean, is that your ask? Because I know we've just talked, and even if we're not carrying the whole workshop, but maybe we can be a steward of a workshop. Maybe, let's say, I'm not making a motion, but just as brainstorming every other month, you know, and then one of however many of us is a steward of that workshop, and that's like a co-MC kind of thing.
So one thing that you guys could do that could really help is post these events on the Facebook page. If you guys just share them on your page, that way people that you influence, you know, actually see you posting that and they may show up.
And to Jennifer's point, yes, if there was a quarterly workshop that we wanted to start with, where it would be once every 3 months, and each board member would have a topic that they would want to have discussed at that workshop, I would work with that board member to get the speaker to set it up and to help facilitate that workshop, and that would still be adhering to number 7, and that would be free public workshops. It would still adhere to that while hopefully getting more attendance. And if that doesn't work, we can go back to other things. We can shift. I just think that because we've done this for about 2 years now, it's probably time to try something different to get more attendance, because I would like to have more people.
Would you mind coming to the?
My name is Mary Ann Reese, 615 Grand Court. I don't know if you can. I wanted to know if you have reached out to organizations. I am the conservation chair of the Satellite Beach Women's Club. And I'm here actually to ask someone to come speak to us.
Oh, okay.
And I also belong to the Indian Harbor Garden Club, who has, a great majority of their members are Satellite Beach citizens. We've never had anyone speak at that meeting. These are women who are anxious to be active, you know, who are anxious to be active. And we just completed a grant, and we did the landscaping for the library. And I have women who are chomping at the bit to do things, to get involved, and they need just a little push, a little instruction, a little help, dates, when could we meet to do things? I've got the people.
I'd be happy to work with you on that.
Exactly, so that's why I'm here. I just finished the library, and now this is we've decided sustainability is our next topic, so, or next involvement, so.
Yeah, the
Reach out.
library absolutely looks great. I go there all the time, and I've noticed through the last couple of years, it's been
Yeah.
unbelievable. I know there's a water tank that's got a hose that's out right now that.
Yes,
I got
there
a
Yeah, we talked to replacement. I know, I know they've been asking about that, and I see it, and I've tried to fix it.
And we just raised money for the sprinkler system also, to get that repaired.
Okay.
Because that's not working.
Oh, really? That's right, because it
So
wasn't
that-
working, and you guys.
That money has already been presented to the Friends of the Library to get that done.
But
So, I mean,
it
we have-
looks
you know, we
so
have
great. I mean,
resources.
it looks like it's so desolate over there, besides there's some native stuff going on, but other than that, it's just a big parking lot. But, you know, they painted the building also, they got a new
Right,
director.
yeah. And I happen to be on the library board, so thank you so much.
Support.
I'm representing, you know,
Yeah, I know,
everybody has
but
to-
that's great,
but-
that's wicked awesome.
Absolutely. I mean, and this is,
Got
you know,
little
the groups
names
that
on
we
them,
can,
too.
we can, you know, we can get together and we can get resources and you can get the community. And you've got people who are interested in gardening, so therefore, you know, they're probably already composting, some of them. I know they are.
Yeah.
And women who are interested in keeping the community up and being active.
Yeah.
So
Really, can I get your
I have,
contact info?
absolutely.
Thank you.
So, thank you.
Thank you so much.
That's great.
So, thank you. I'm not really sure, so I'm just putting it out there. But I feel like you're asking for reducing frequency and increasing the quality of the events. Do we need a motion to change that in any way? No? All right,
We just need to do it.
we just need to do it. Okay,
And I would,
all right.
Do it.
I would also add to that too, it would be great for the purposes of ongoing learning and tying everything together to have like some quick, I don't know if this is possible, maybe like Lexi would know this, or maybe you guys, some sort of quick assessment, or I don't know, how you gauge, what do you know, what did you learn, what are you going to do? You know, because then we definitely collect data on who comes, but like some sort of consistent, quick, what do you know, what did you learn, what are you going to do?
The surveys I did.
Okay.
That a little bit. We
Yeah.
could gear them so that they're not just generalized to the lagoon, we can gear them to each workshop, I think is kind
Yeah.
of what you're asking.
Yeah, and quick. I mean,
Yeah.
3
I
questions,
always ask
yeah.
those questions for those
Yeah.
of you that have attended the workshops.
Yeah,
I always
yeah.
ask- I always give 3 things you should learn from this workshop. At
Right.
the end, I always ask it verbally, but I've never actually
Right, get a
written
written,
it
like,
down. So
yeah.
that's a great idea.
I think it would be great because then we get some sort of ongoing, like, qualitative trend and it can tie back to all the other GATs.
I wonder, would it be possible to do, this might just be crazy, but like a, you know, like if it's some, like a pledge type thing that they're gonna sign, like if we could have like a tablet or a computer that they could do it and then it just emails them a copy, so we're not doing paper.
We have a budget.
Oh, yeah, text data. I do that in my projects. Or just, it's easy. You can get a text, bam, yes, 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 or here's what I think. It's not too hard anymore. It's so like, it's not cross prohibitive like it used to be, yeah.
Downside is it's connected to the city, which means anything that somebody provides, like a phone number or email, is public record,
That's true.
Cool.
which may put some people off.
Yeah,
And we've had a bad history during 1 year of that being abused.
true.
All right. In last month's meeting, I expressed the desire to work with Nick on this, increasing, attendance, and working with Nick. May I proceed? I'd like to also, like to work on that ask that you're talking about with him. You took notes on that, of course.
Absolutely.
So I'd like to get with Nick over the month, kind of discuss how we can build that up a little bit better. All right?
Thank you, board. Great direction. Thank you.
And if you're doing a questionnaire, it might be nice if you could to make it generic, so that it doesn't matter whether it's composting, solar, or whatever else. You can take them along, you can say, okay, at this workshop, there were 37 people, and we had 6 of them said they learned something, and then you have another one, and 10 people said they learned something or whatever, that you can do some correlations among the different things instead of specific questions.
Okay. Thanks, John.
All right, any further public comment? Yes, please.
David Schechter, Satellite Beach. One of the things that's worked over the years that I've watched, if you're trying to get people there, you get the kids there. The kids come, the parents come, but at certain ages. They can't get there by themselves, the parents come. And it sounds like you're taking advantage of them, but that's just a technique. That's why in Founder's Day, any kid who wants to be in there can be in a parade. Doesn't matter if your affiliation, Girl Scout, Brownies, Cub Scout, Little League, whatever it is, you invite them to come. I know it sounds like you're taking advantage of them, but.
No, it's brilliant.
But just, and it won't work for everything. But if you have some events, you get the kids that are doing something, the parents come. You gotta come and bring them, take them out.
Would you
It's
suggest
just
pizza
a
in a movie?
just a practical thing
Yeah.
that we've learned over the years, so.
Pizza in a movie, or?
Something works. Food works for certain.
Right, right.
It's not great on your topics, but it's this thing that you can take advantage of.
Yeah,
Take advantage.
that's a great suggestion.
Thank you. It's a great
Yeah.
suggestion.
Thank you. All right, any further public comments? No? Let's move forward to an action item I'm excited about. Discuss, take action on the recommendation to City Council to approve Doubles Beachside for the Starry Skies certification. And I think, are you going to be talking about that, Jesse?
No, we're going to meet after, and we're going to talk about the presentation of Doubles when we meet, because we're meeting tomorrow to talk about Starry Skies. So I'll just make this one real quick, hopefully. Sustainability Board, I'm giving you the recommended action to approve Doubles for the Starry Skies certification. As we talked about previously, recreating the language from what was Dark Skies to become Starry Skies. Thank you all for your hard work on that. The outline of what it is to be Starry Skies is in here, in your agenda item. And Doubles has gone above and beyond, done all the things that we've outlined for a business to do. If you go there currently today, you can see that. Their outside lighting is all seasonal friendly. It's all the right warmth, and the sign is on time. Their parking lot will be, mostly lit from other lighting from across the street from CVS, who is not Dark Sky certified. But with that, I have only one question to ask. Which color do you want it in? Do you want it in blue, white, or yellow? I recommend the blue.
I like the white. I like the white.
Well, the white also is an option. So if you'd like to pass this over to the chair and have them sign, we can present that.
Question on that.
If you approve it, you can present that to Doubles at their grand opening. Yes, John?
I noticed that they've got on the DeSoto side, the north side, looks like an outdoor gathering area.
Yes.
And they got poles up, and it looks like they strung a whole bunch of clear Christmas bulbs, I'll call them, there.
Okay.
Does that meet Starry Skies?
That wasn't there
Because
last
if
time
they
around.
have a canopy over it, it would, but I don't see a canopy there.
Okay.
Now, may not be complete, I don't know, but I'm just,
That wasn't there when I was there. When did that happen? When did you see that?
It was like a week ago.
Was it a week
Week
ago?
or two. I saw him putting it up also. Like, I actually saw the guy out there stringing it.
Well,
Taking it back.
I'll have to check on that. Thank you, John.
Yeah, I'd hate to make a presentation.
Well, as
and
long as
find out that
they're
there's-
under 3,000 Kelvin, that'll be okay. So as long as the Kelvin's correct, they'll still adhere to the dark skies.
Okay, and it doesn't matter if it radiates upward then?
Right. Exterior lighting fixtures shall be 3,000 kelvins. Like, that's within the language.
That's it?
Yeah. Security lighting shall be timer controlled. Freestanding signs shall be soft and turned off 1 hour after closing, and exterior lights shall be shielded back to illuminating above the horizontal plane.
That's the point right there. Shielded above the horizontal plane.
That's why it would be a canopy.
I think you're gonna put like sun tarps over it?
Well, it's part of their agreement, so I'll make sure that I go talk to them about that.
Yeah, you know, if there's tarps over it, which may be the case, because I can't imagine people out there in the day, you know, with the sun up above,
And you
especially in
put,
August.
Dimmers on them.
It's true.
So,
Those lights, and you can buy a dimmer for it
Yeah.
from Amazon,
Okay.
Are we
commercial.
going with this spelling of skies for a particular reason, or is it just
Do we, is that supposed to be a different spelling?
SKIES?
Okay. Okay. Well,
I wasn't sure if like it was a decided on thing. It's
probably good. That was just the way it was worded when we did it originally.
Oh, okay.
But if there's a preferred way of doing it,
I mean,
I guess.
it doesn't look bad.
So it's like multiple.
Well, then we'll change it.
So it's, oh, yeah, and then there's an apostrophe, so it's like starry sky, like the
No.
sky owns it.
No, there's not an apostrophe.
But there is in our materials,
there's
but,
in there.
so I didn't know if it was.
Oh.
I corrected it,
Oh, okay, yeah.
but I did not correct the certificate, sorry.
Okay. I was just in the language. I could change it.
how do you spell skies, plural?
SKIES, but I just added an apostrophe, so you could keep it as SKYS. I don't care. You guys make the recommendation.
Skies would be possessive, and I don't think that's possessive.
Just
Right,
make the recommendation and we'll change it.
yeah.
All right.
Is it skies, like many skies?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Outside.
SK, so we should
Whatever
reprint.
they say.
Why not just starry sky? We've got one sky, right?
Well, I mean, I would argue like that inspiration of this was dark skies. So I feel like if we just make it starry sky, then, I mean, it's more of a diversion. I don't know that that's
Yeah,
so bad.
Okay, I could see from the national program, because Denver does it, Philadelphia does it, something else, or Yellowstone and whatever, there's multiple skies.
Yeah.
We have one sky here,
Really easy to fix.
so it'd be starry sky.
starry. I would suggest starry. I'm not hard over, I mean, but it just strikes me as starry sky probably, and it avoids the problem whether it's possessive or plural.
Right.
Right, I don't think it's possessive, I think.
If it isn't
Grammatically
singular,
correct.
it's
It
plural.
says-
It's gonna stare at you forever when you go into doubles if you don't.
Yeah, skies.
Yeah, and then you go in there and like swipe it and.
I think to John's point, starry sky does make sense.
Plural,
Starry sky.
oh,
Also
starry
move.
sky.
Yeah, otherwise,
I'm not strong on it.
Yes.
You're gonna have to reprint either way.
Right.
We've got a motion. John?
can you reuse the paper?
Flip it around.
Just cut it up in little pieces like this, we'll have them right here, it'll be like starry skies, I remember. Starry skies.
We have a motion to, what do you want to say?
Why don't we do it to award the starry sky to Doubles, provided a last check confirms that they're still in compliance. How's that?
it's gonna
Singular,
be starry
starry
sky.
sky.
I would second that.
Second that.
Jennifer Schroeder,
Yes,
Steve Dillon,
Yes.
Chris Reed,
Yes,
sorry, John Fergus,
Yes.
Dave Bigliotti.
Yes.
Motion passes.
perfect. This award will be presented, this award is going to be presented at the grand opening. Do you have the date?
When is the grand opening?
Not yet, no date yet.
Okay.
oh,
and
I know I got, like, I thought I missed it at first.
No date
Just-
yet.
Yeah.
Just so you're aware, we're aware, Jazzy is going to be presenting this, right?
Wow.
She's okay with that?
You're going to be
Okay,
presenting?
bring it up to you tomorrow.
Yeah, we haven't had our meeting yet, so I know what you guys know.
All right. I'm
Yeah.
hoping that most of us will be in attendance,
Yeah.
you know? Maybe
I'd love to
If we
do
could
that.
be back behind you or whatever.
We'll cheer you.
I think
be
that'd be really cool. So as soon as we get a date, I'd love to get that date out there so I can be there.
Yeah, for sure.
All right, thank you, board.
All right, any further public comment?
I think you should give them that version.
That's the version they're gonna get. They're gonna get that version right there.
Just take out a red pen and correct it.
Yeah.
All right, no further public comment. Next action item, discuss, take action on board member participation in the Solar Expo, which Nick was talking about earlier.
All right, yeah, so since we kind of talked about that a little bit, the recommended action for this one is geared towards all board members attending, all board members being involved in whatever capacity they're comfortable. Specifically, David Gliotti and John Fergus, since you have solar on your homes, and to anyone else who knows people with solar on their homes, getting people to come out and tell their story and share their story of solar. So this is in an effort to connect residents with local businesses and solar professionals. So like I said before, PACE program providers for funding, self-providers for funding. If there's any other financial providers that I missed that you know about, please let me know. If there are any solar contractors that you want to make sure are there, please let me know. I've reached out to all the contractors that were part of our bid process for solar here on City Hall. I've gotten some yeses and some nos. They definitely, our provider will be here. Yes, they will be here. Justin said they'll be here to represent the Satellite Beach project itself, to talk to people about that in more detail. And as well, we're looking to have the solar co-op, as John had mentioned, be here to talk about the next co-op, how the co-ops work, and how people can get involved to better gauge the community,
Yeah,
outpouring of
part
support.
of their spiel is why the co-op is a good thing. In other words, they've got the expertise, you can ask questions. If the provider doesn't perform to your satisfaction, they've got some leverage you don't. And so they've got they give these anytime they open. I would presume if they made a presentation, they'd give the same one they do anytime they open a co-op, so.
Pretty much. They'll just have a table. And all vendors, hopefully 25, I've reached out to more than 25, but aiming for 25, we'll all have a table in a 10 by 10 space in the open area between the two buildings here at 565 Cassia, in the breezeway. If it does rain, I did make sure with Cassie that we can move inside. So we have that option. If it does, weather does change, we have the option to move inside if we have to. Haven't secured a food truck yet. Wanted to get Coastal Kitchen, but they weren't available. So I'll look for alternatives there.
What about the PAL food trucks? You may check with them
Another
and see
option.
which ones.
Yeah, I just heard back from Coastal Kitchen that they couldn't, so I'll reach out to my second choice.
Now, is the Scotty Culp Room going to be used?
It will be available until 2, which is when the event ends.
Available for what?
If we needed to move in there for anything. We were talking about using it for a speaker space and things like that.
Well,
But
that
again,
might-
to better give each vendor the opportunity to communicate with the whole of the attendees without pulling people away from the event and pulling them into a small space to communicate directly one-on-one. That was just the way that this event happened to turn out. In the future, if we want to make adjustments, to have the option for an event that is also a workshop, we can talk about that too.
Well, I was trying to figure is the 5 minutes at the microphone, is that out in the
Yes,
open area?
out in the open air, hopefully the other people to come to that booth and then moving down the line.
Well, my thought was it's really not too late, I don't think, if the co-op people said they'd be willing to do a thing, go into the Scotty Culp Room and schedule it at 10 or 11 o'clock or something like that. I would count that as a workshop big time.
I could certainly ask them to do that.
I would think, work a convenient time that works with the schedule with everything else going on, if they'd be willing to do that. They don't have a co-op going, but that could give them an opportunity to feel what how warm the climate is for a third in this area.
take that direction. Thank you.
You know, see how it goes.
All right. So are we, board, are we so moved to aid and direct staff in preparation for the solar summit?
Yeah.
All right,
I don't, we don't need a motion, do we?
well, my question is, do we have two people who will commit to
Well,
being there?
That was,
I certainly plan to be there.
November 23rd,
November 23rd, 9 a.m. to 2 p.m.
9 a.m., 2 p.m. And
Okay.
where's it going to be exactly?
565 Casket, right here between the two buildings and the breezeway.
Yeah.
I plan to be there.
I'll be there.
Okay.
23rd, 9 to 2.
All right.
Yeah, that's your holidays.
Perfect. Good. All right, any further
Thank you,
public
Board.
comment? No? Oh my goodness, this is a big one. All right, next item, discuss, take action on creating a tree program in memory of Gail Meredith.
Okay, so as you may have heard, Gail Meredith passed recently during the hurricane. She was an exemplary member of our community, an environmental advocate, and was involved with a number of different organizations. We recommend approval of this to City Council. So if the board would approve to City Council the concept of this tree proposal, of the city's tree proposal, in partnership with Brevard Indian River Lagoon Coalition and a tree forest kickoff project right here at City Hall. So the idea would be that with the passing of the avid environmentalist, Gail Meredith, that the community come together and create this tree program in her honor. It was something that she wanted to do. We'd spoken personally about it many times. She wanted to have a tree in everyone's home. The idea was to give trees to every community member in the city and beyond. There's a lot of different tree programs out there, but this was the idea that she had. She felt really passionately about it. To kind of kickstart that, the idea of a tree forest in front of City Hall is something that is a way to kind of get residents to see what's possible, right? And give them a place to go that they can kind of be inspired. And that will hopefully then kick off the next phase of this. So there's a Keep Brevard Beautiful grant, and the Brevard Indian River Lagoon Coalition will use the funds they've raised, $2,500, to match against that KBB grant. Hopefully they get it. And that will be used to purchase the trees that will be planted out front of City Hall. Staff time is something that we can contribute. If Public Works can help with the planting, that's something the city can contribute. There's also larger grants from the Department of Forestry that are 3-year grants. Hopefully we'll be able to get one of those as well. The idea behind that is that we would do a tree survey within the city to see what we have, look at our code to see how we can change code to better allow for trees, to promote trees, and then to actually plant them in year 3. So it'll be a 3-year program. So those 2 different grants are something as part of the concept that we want to pursue with the Brevard Indian River Lagoon Coalition as this concept for the tree forest in front of City Hall. I went ahead and I did some quick math through some programs working with Nicole Perna to drop some renderings, and she presented them alongside Vince Lamb and Courtney Barker at Whiskey Beach, and met with great reception from all those that were there, from what I heard. Unfortunately, I was at the BMAC meeting, so I couldn't be there. I just recommend approval of this concept to be brought in front of City Council to be moved forward in honor of Gail.
Can I add one thing?
Yeah.
There's already $2,500 raised for this project, correct, for her?
Correct.
In her honor.
Correct.
So any of the grants are almost like a matching type
Correct.
of deal, correct?
1-to-1 match.
Right.
I just want to say how much I love this idea.
Yeah.
And I love Gail, so I'm excited about this. And I feel like we should call David Floyd, because I don't think anybody
It would be more happy, right?
Increasing the canopy.
You may come back.
Well, he was always talking about live oaks, live oaks, live oaks, live oaks.
It's on our
And I
list.
sat next to
It's on
him
our
for a
list of
long
trees.
time about it, which I love live oaks, and they do take a long time, and we desperately need them. But I think the other situation is more sustainable living trees that are more native and more living, like edible landscaping that we can eat, like mangoes, avocados, things like that.
That was exactly my question, was I wanted to know what part of the conversation was edible for us.
So
Yeah.
in the area in front of City Hall, there won't be edible trees. But they will be on the options in the long-term plan for residents that are involved in the program when they're going to get trees from the tree list. The native trees will include native trees of all types, including fruiting and nuts and whatever other trees they wanted to get. But for this area here, it was magnolias, fiddlewoods, Walters Verbinium, a large list of other trees, including cedars and pines as well.
Do you know
Has
why
public-
it wasn't,
Go ahead.
do you know why it was, like edibles weren't included? What was the?
So for the area in front of City Hall, the maintenance issue with that
Okay.
was something that we wanted to avoid. If it was staying sidewalks and things of that nature, because we do have some areas out there.
Right.
And if it was to attract any wildlife that wasn't desired, that might be an issue that we wanted to avoid
Right.
as well. And just the type of maintenance involved with those trees versus the magnolias and other trees that are a little less maintenance.
Sure, I would just say, maybe in the long term, thinking about some city-owned edible tree. I mean, it's a statement and it's sort of a metaphor, and totally get all the context around that.
The community garden would be a great place for
There you go.
those types
There
of
you
trees.
go.
And we are going to plant the mulberries that I have out there.
Yeah. Your mango's looking good, too.
Yeah. John?
Magnolia is a messy tree. Have you passed this by Public Works? This list?
The list of trees?
Yeah.
Flowers fall down.
And leaves too. I think
Okay.
it tends to
I'll
be
make sure that they
a
can look at this
a
particular
litter
list.
generator. That's
It's a good
what I
call.
understand.
I know one of the things you were talking about is, especially with this project here, is possibly taking out all of the sod.
Mhm.
Like, could those leaves be good mulch? If they fall?
It's just work. It's spreading
It's-
work for the.
It's,
public.
yeah, Public Works does not need any more, let's put it this way. Last night, we decided to really limit the number of cabbage palms on the new Public Works firehouse site because the fronds, especially the fruiting bodies, are something that Public Works does not want to have to mess with, okay? So I would have thought that would have been a first, easy palm tree, no big deal. Turns out Public Works has a problem with them. So,
How about pine trees?
no, I meant, what did I say? Pine trees? I mean cabbage palms.
Cabbage palms.
Cabbage palms.
All right, are we so moved to aid in this kickoff project? That's where it's starting, right?
Yes.
The kickoff project.
So moved.
Second.
David Gliotti,
Yes.
Steve Dellen,
Yes.
Jennifer Schroeder,
Yes.
John Fergus.
We have public comment on this?
Oh,
We all love trees.
maybe we should do public comment first? All right. Any further public comment? No? Enemy? Yes.
Great.
All right, sounds awesome.
Can I wait for Jackie to do this?
Super exciting.
It depends on the grant with KBB. Should be by the end of the year that we'd know if we,
All right, next order of business, board member comments. I know we got some.
I've got my stuff I'm working, but it's not at a real discussion point at this point.
I feel like I said everything.
All right. Am I the only one who's going to say something? Yeah. All right. Okay, well, I just want to mention a few things. I've been talking with Nick about our booth, because our booth is going to be coming up here at Founder's Day. And one of the things I recommended was getting a pamphlet holder to hold our pamphlets, off of, you've been at our desk?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, we have paper strewn everywhere, covered with rocks and so forth. I think it'd be nice if we had a pamphlet holder. So I've asked Nick to search for something, and I guess you found a couple that we can use. I also was asking about a little clarity of information, clarity of message when we're there at the booth. I've done the booth for a couple of years now, and we take up about 2 tables, correct?
Yes.
And I was just wondering if there's some more clarity that we can have. And I'm happy to open up for a discussion on ways that we can clarify our message during that day. Nick's also going to be, I'm going to get with you about fixing the wheel. Have you seen the recycling wheel? Yeah, well, I saw a recycling wheel that was made out of a bicycle wheel. So I'm going to get with Nick next week and redo that wheel so it's not as wobbly, and paint it in the same colors so that we can continue playing that game, because that was a lot of fun. It got a lot of kids involved. However, the clarification on how that game works is another thing. We kind of just randomly made up questions. I don't know if we can really make a game out of that, but that'd be awesome. And the kids would, of course, love it.
Okay.
Because remember last year, we had your awesome deck of cards, and we had to search through the cards and twist the, answer into a question and give it to a kid, and it was funny. But if we had like a clear set of questions, that'd be great, and color-coded.
Try to get you one by Founder's Day.
All right.
Definitely by Ocean Beach.
I'm happy to help. I'm happy to help.
I don't know if we can do this quickly enough, but just a big board that this is your city, and then what you do is you put, I would like more trees on it, trees over here, or I would like.
Get at the garden with the big board and then.
Yeah.
And you add stuff to it, and so it's very interactive, and people can draw on it and say, I want more trees here, and I want water receptacles at the city parks. I don't see them there, or you can have water fountains, or you can just talk about stuff like that, so everybody can participate.
Cool.
That's another idea.
Just to clarify, are you saying you want the wheel to play into that?
No.
No,
Okay.
it's separate.
An idea board.
Remember how we have this?
No, I remember that, I just saw like the combination of the wheel playing into that, but
Oh, the wheel?
okay, no problem.
The wheel should be that fun game where we give
Yeah.
up the prizes, and then we should have a
That's what we did.
idea board like we had.
Well,
at the
I'll recommend that if the board members want to come with ideas, email them to me, and I'll help, but come with ideas that you want to see as questions on the board, and I'll organize it.
So
It would also seem appropriate to have something that lists the things the city has done or is doing. So,
Sure,
we've
we've
got a
done
long
that in the
list of
past. We still
stuff.
have that.
Yeah, we have that giant,
Yeah.
those giant cards of GATS, but we have even more information to share now with how far we've come and what we're working on.
And you have a whole wall there.
Or a calendar of events. This event is going to be, like, we're going to talk, Nick's going to have this conversation on this day. What else we have, that's coming up, that we can have these little events that are coming up,
Sure.
that somehow we could just point them, are you going to go to this event?
Nick, I'm concerned with staffing on that day. Have you given us specific times that you want us to be there and staff that table?
Have I given you time?
Yeah.
No, I would like you to volunteer time.
Well, no.
Come on,
That's
Nick.
what we've done in the past.
Well, we can run down the list right now real quick. Who wants to be for setup? Who wants to show up early?
I'll do it.
Dave. It's like not me.
David there for setup?
Yeah, what
That's
time?
8 o'clock, right?
8, but we get there at 7:30 normally,
7:30.
right?
What is the
And I just stay
time?
there until it seems to be, I can walk away from it, but otherwise I stay.
All right. So how long can you stay, Dave?
I'll stay till whatever, 10, 11, whatever.
2? Okay.
I know, whatever I need be, last time.
10:30?
Yeah.
10:30, okay.
Is the booth near the bike collective booth?
I'm hoping so. I
We're going
don't
to
know.
be stationed next to each of the other boards.
Where does the bike?
And then that end piece, we can be connected to the bike collective, I think.
Okay. Mine's more of a childcare thing, like, because
Okay.
we're manning 2 booths.
I know, I'll have my kids that
Yeah.
day too.
They at least just see them.
I can be there, but I can't be counted on.
Right.
Okay.
We could put
All
it in a
right,
corner
so
with Darth
Does anyone want to take over when Dave's done at 10:30, or come in at about 10
Well,
o'clock?
we're going to be in the parade.
Yeah, at about 10 o'clock.
Yeah.
So the parade should be done by what time?
11, 12.
Okay.
I'm happy to come, I'm happy to be there at opening too.
Is the parade at
I think that,
I thought the parade was at 11.
I've got an email,
It does start at 11, but you
Okay.
have to be there by 9 or 10.
10-ish.
Yeah,
Okay.
10.
I think if we have one person there, holding our space,
Yeah.
we can bum rush it over there to Delora at about 10:45, get everybody over there for the parade, and go around. I think that's the way we're going to have to do it, but
Yeah.
about that specifically, I've asked that we use the Satellite Beach Bike Collective Facebook page as kind of the siren on when we're going to meet and where, so they're going to really have that communication on when to be at the actual spot.
Yeah.
So,
I could man after the parade.
After the
I can
parade, that'd be
woman
great.
the table
I
after.
can handle it during the parade, it's not a problem.
Okay, after the parade.
So after the parade is.
Drop that one there, yeah.
definitely want to reach out to Mark. I know he wants to be a part.
The playing cards were a big hit last year.
We still have some.
Yeah,
We still
that
have
Nick created. They are really awesome.
Yeah.
People love them.
We've been giving those out at school events too. They'll be there as prizes on the wheel.
We had the water bottles or
We have the water bottles, we have some bags.
bags.
Um,
And those are for sale, but I can give away some things that you're going to
Right.
giveaways. We had some giveaways last year.
We would suggest a donation.
Right. We had some good donations.
Does anybody else want to help after the parade with Jennifer? At the close of the day?
The close of day, I'm happy to help you out.
Okay.
Yeah, because we'll be closing the bike thing down. I can work in tandem. I can do both.
We had a garden sale last year, too. Do we have any more garden plots available?
Yes.
We might want to put stuff like that on there, too.
Yeah.
So if we have one-
plan to advertise for the 2 garden beds that are available.
Okay. We should be able to sell those.
I know we're getting a little long in the tooth, but we also have those composting bins that we need to discuss what we want to do with those. We have 10,
Well, you approved the workshop, right? So,
right? That's going to be
I
part
could
of that?
just bring my worm bin.
Well, maybe Jennifer and I will kind of talk
Oh,
about
that'd be good, yeah.
the workshop details, and then we'll bring that back to the
Okay.
board
So
at the
that,
next meeting.
Yes, I was thinking, are we meeting before the workshop? It's like 3 days before.
That's all you need.
Yep, so, and also, I think our next meeting is after Ocean Reef, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Just FYI.
okay. So we won't have any composting bins at Founder's Day.
No, but we can bring a pledge or something that will get people that want to be involved aware of the workshop.
Because last year we were selling them, I
Right,
think.
right.
Right.
So we'll promote the workshop for composting at Founder's Day.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Making a note.
I'm going to move on. The bike rodeo was awesome. It was incredible. Last month. Was that really just last month? Yeah, it was incredible. Great attendance. And this month, sorry, it's late. The Bike Collective is going to be at Founder's Day. We're going to have a whole booth. We're also going to have activities, hopefully, with changing tires, like competitions for changing tires. We're still going to have our monthly workshop on that day in our booth. You know, if you need your bike worked on, or if you want to work on some bikes, those bikes will be there. I know those are 2 things we agreed on, and also this parade thing is a really big deal. Everyone here is welcome to join us on the parade. You're just encouraged to get your bike ready. We're going to meet over at Delora and ride our bikes through the city as part of the parade. I'll have 2 banners there, one for the Sustainability Board and one for the Bicycle Collective. And we're going to figure out some silly way of tethering the banners between 2 bikes and trying to make it through town.
And it's a whole lot easier than walking the parade route, right?
Well, you're on bikes, you should ride a bike.
Yeah, absolutely. No, that's what I mean. We're gonna tether the, yeah, we're gonna ride, and then also, if we have time, I'm glad we're getting clarification. But if we have time, we're going to create a float, if we have time, which will be more silliness. So it is kind of like a combined effort. The Sustainability Board and the Satellite Beach Bike Collective are trying to come together and promote sustainability. It'd be great if I could finally make that connection with Publix. They were saying that they really wanted to help out with the bicycle events. I've always wanted to offer a $5 off coupon to any resident who rides their bike to Publix, and I wonder if Publix might be up for anything like that, even if we only get like 5 gift cards. I think that'd be a really cool thing. Okay, so I'd like to get some information from him. That's great. Lastly, last month I was extremely impressed with the Alexa and how she defined the Sustainability Board. And I actually called her over this past month and was wondering, was that written down? Like, where did that come from? And it was just off the top of her head. I thought she had a great definition for what we do and should be doing, what we should be doing. So we've been having conversations about mission statements and vision statements. She has had experience with that in the past with FIT, and those items are excellent. I would love to continue the conversation with her to clarify stuff like that, so that when and if I'm approached for a interview, which has happened. I mean, I've been on social media and in newspapers for this board. I'd like to refer to that statement, or that mission statement, the vision statement, and also what was the third thing?
We kind of alter, so one purpose is but a statement of purpose.
Statement of purpose.
It's kind of really, like, so it can kind of all serve, really with the reasons behind having a vision statement, a mission statement, and or a statement of purpose, or any combination of those, is to have an anchor to tie back your actions, your decisions, your reasoning, your decision-making processes back to. So, does it serve our purpose? Does it feed into our mission, and is it helping us move towards our vision? And that can be very helpful when you have interdisciplinary and multimodal and multi-departmental and far-reaching topics to discuss, like sustainability does inherently.
What's in the board's handbook?
Right. So
That'd be the starting point.
I just want to mention that I do have the handbook here, or
Okay.
part of the handbook, and I've discussed with Nick and her that we want to include these items that we already have, and you're all about it, right?
Yeah, definitely.
So we've got energy consumption reduction, reducing the city's carbon footprint. That will be included in this mission and vision.
Well, and I think, some of the conversations we've had over the past few months have been, at least the questions I've had, is what does that functionally mean for the role of the board? And that, to me, has been less clear. And I think if we can keep talking about that, especially as many boards, including this one, is an ongoing new members, what are we talking about in terms of getting information for ourselves, making recommendations? Surely the GATS are a beautiful, articulate, well-vetted piece of work, basically, that was done with many people over a lot of time. But from that to our everyday, every month actions, what does that mean for us leveraging with what staff's role is versus? And I've served on a number of boards, and it's always the case that it's like, where does our role stop? Where does our role, if we're a group of do-gooders leaning in, that's great. If we have more of a functional role in policy proxy, what does that look like? So I think us all making sure that we have a shared understanding of that, to me, helps with the functional part of it. Because we could say the words and they sound wonderful, but do we all have a shared understanding about what that means in everyday meeting, action. Yeah.
And these statements are meant to they're meant to be a little bit loftier of a concept, and so from those, you have your purpose, you have your goals, your objectives, and your actions, so it's kind of an upside down pyramid, if you will, or you can do it right side up too. You build off of your purpose to your goal, your
Absolutely.
objectives, and then your action is the top of the pyramid, so what does that look like on the ground and practically?
Yeah.
But we gotta start here.
Yeah,
To
of course,
understand.
everyone does.
To understand that our actions are moving towards one thing, as opposed
Yeah.
to feeling like we don't have direction or that we're not moving towards something tangible.
Absolutely.
Cool.
So I look forward to that conversation, so that, yeah.
Yeah, I'd like to keep that conversation going, and you had mentioned, I don't want to put you out there, but you might be able to draft something by Friday, possibly. I guess it's a matter of how we keep everyone informed of where we are in these statements, and we have to go through Julie, correct? So we can create a chain of emails for the board?
They can go out, but don't respond and saying, I don't like this and I like this.
You just can't respond to all. You can respond, just not to all.
Okay, directly to you.
Yes.
Yeah,
Or
in
whoever
private.
sent the email. I don't have to be the only one.
Okay, so you can.
So practically me,
you can-
yeah.
You can send the email to each board member, and we do not reply to all when we respond. So we can continue communicating throughout the month like that.
And that's probably a good exercise. I'm a charter member of a board with the Air Force that's been around, I think it's about 20 years now. One of maybe 2 or 3 charter members remaining. And this issue came up at the last meeting. What are we doing here and what's our role? And
And
so
then-
there's going to be some revisiting.
And how we build mission statements and vision statements and statements of purpose is through questions. So mission statements have different questions that they answer, and vision statements have different questions that they answer. And so that's to kind of help us. The biggest analogy that I can provide is your vision statement is what's in the light at the end of the tunnel, and your mission statement is how you get through that tunnel.
And it's only functional if we have a shared consensus and understanding on that. So
And
it could be elegantly written, for one person, but not having a shared understanding, it's not functional.
Yeah, and it incorporates your pillars, it incorporates your values, it incorporates, obviously, it takes into account city council and city and residents and community and all of those things. And it becomes a more defined path, which is good.
Yeah, that may be something to work on, and in the process, if you find something that's in the board handbook now that maybe needs amending, that can be held aside until the next time they've got some reason to amend the board handbook and just append this to it.
All right, very cool. So we'll proceed in that way over the next month.
Yep.
All right, thank you so much. That's all I have. Is there any further public comment?
When's the next meeting? It's not the right time.
Next meeting, December
11th.
December 11th.
Yeah. Yeah, December 11th. So that would be after Ocean Beach, Ocean Reef.
Maybe there's a date that we
Last
can.
year, I believe we skipped December, went to January.
Yeah, well, this was a split, that's the November, December meeting is on December 11th.
That's what you're doing.
All right, next
We'll
item.
make that happen.
Next item is agenda items for the next meeting. Now, we talked about this briefly, right? Bringing up agenda items for months in advance. I just want the staff's recommendation how we should go forward with formulating items for the next couple months, because that's something that we wanted to do. You expressed that you wanted to do like 3 months in advance, but
So as the board, if there are topics that you want to have covered, right, bring them up as recommended agenda items for the next meeting, and then we'll create that list, and we'll move down that list, we'll mark them each off, and we'll create those agenda items as we see fit to relate them to what we're doing.
So I want to be clear on that, and they will be used as they're fit. So it may not be, because we may request that something be talked about next month, but if it doesn't fit into what we're doing.
If you want to talk about next month, it'll go in next month's
Okay.
agenda item.
Okay, just to be clear.
Yeah, if you want something to go on 2 months from now, if you don't know when something goes on and you want to talk about it, we can figure out where to put those things. But as staff, recommend each board member comes up with a list of agenda items that you want to discuss and bring them up at each meeting that you feel like you want to have them discuss at the next meeting.
Right.
And then we can just continue off of that list as it gets created.
I think the reason I said that was just because sometimes it's helpful to get a sense of the next, 3 months and how sequencing this works so that we have the time and space to dig into a topic as needed. I would request that we talk about the compost workshop next time, so it'll be 3 days prior the meeting will be, so, maybe some space and time to talk about mission statement. Those are just thoughts. I don't know if it's a motion.
That's perfect. I'm only wanting clarification because I feel like, and I'm not sure, but I feel like we had a lot of recommendations that we didn't exactly address this month, right? I mean,
Well, there's also only so much time that we have.
all right, I understand.
So,
So I just want to be clear that there may be times where we can't do everything that we've
correct.
requested for the next month. We skip it, we push it on.
Is there anything that we didn't address during this meeting that board members feel that we want to move to the next meeting? Workshops of composting and mission statement. Definitely not.
Seems, but I'm flexible.
Are you suggesting those for the next meeting?
Jennifer did.
Yes.
I made a suggestion. Yeah.
Okay.
Those suggestions go to me, by the way,
Oh,
because I write the agenda.
Yeah.
Julie?
Julie, just Julie.
Wait, who
We
are,
can CC them,
Okay.
but they come to Julie.
excellent. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Give me the whip whenever I need it.
I
Yeah.
just wanted to be clear that I am the person
Yeah,
who writes it physically
yeah.
and posts it.
I think we're doing good, right at 2 hours right now, because we started 7 minutes late, so. All right.
Be clear.
Is there any further board comment about that? Any further public comment?
What about minutes?
Minutes? Okay, no. Next
No, minutes,
item.
Okay.
Adoption of minutes for September 25th, 2019.
So move.
Second.
Jennifer Schroeder,
Yes.
Steve Gillen,
Yes.
David Leotti.
Yes.
John Fergus.
Yes.
Chris Reed,
Yes.
motion passed.
All right, thank you. Thank you so much for coming. That'll do it for today. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm sorry, it's very close to Julie. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I want to know what they are.